You've heard the name Jonestown, right? It's become this chilling shorthand for, well, for the darkest side of belief. Today, we're going to unpack how a promise of a literal paradise on Earth spiraled into an almost unimaginable tragedy.
Let's start with a number, 918. On one single day, November 18, 1978, 918 people died. And these weren't just random people, they were American citizens, and that included a U.S. congressman and journalists who had followed one man deep into the jungles of South America.
And that brings us to the question that's haunted this story for decades. Was this a mass suicide, a collective decision, or was it something much, much darker, a mass murder? And when you think about that, you have to remember this one gut-wrenching detail. Over 300 of the dead were children. Little kids, babies, far too young to make any choice at all.
So how did it all go so horribly wrong? Well, to get that, we have to go back to the beginning. Because the People's Temple didn't start with death. It actually started with this incredible promise of a better world.
It all started with this guy, the very charismatic and, as we'll see, very powerful Jim Jones. And right from the jump, back in the 1950s, the People's Temple was, well, it was radical. It was a fully integrated church in the middle of Indiana at a time when much of the country was still deeply segregated.
Jones's whole ideology was this really powerful mix that he called apostolic socialism. Think about it. He blended the passion and energy of a Pentecostal church with some seriously revolutionary Marxist politics. He basically told his followers that traditional religion was like a drug, an opiate, and that true enlightenment was socialism.
And listen, this wasn't some fringe group hiding out in the woods. No way. When the temple moved to California, Jones became a massive political player. He could deliver thousands of votes, which made him an incredibly powerful ally for politicians. We're talking so much influence that he was made the chairman of the San Francisco Housing Authority. He was rubbing elbows with governors, vice presidents, even First Lady Rosalynn Carter. They were a recognized, respected political force.
But, when you get that powerful, people start looking closer. The media got more critical, and former members started telling stories of abuse. So Jones felt the pressure, and he decided it was time for the final step, to build their own society from the ground up, far away from the prying eyes of the United States.
So, where do you go to escape America? For Jones, the answer was Guyana. It was a small, socialist country in South America, and it was perfect. The plan was to build this totally self-sufficient agricultural commune, a true socialist paradise, where their ideals of racial and economic equality could finally become reality, with no outside interference. So who were these people who packed up their lives for this jungle paradise? Well, looking at the numbers tells a really important story. About 70% of the residents were African American, and the community was mostly female. For a lot of people who felt completely left out by the racial and social chaos of 1970s America, this was it. This was a real chance to build an equal society, a genuine escape from the injustices they lived with every day. But that dream of a utopia? It didn't last long. Once they were isolated in the jungle, with Jim Jones in total, absolute control, the vision started to crack, and a terrifying reality began to set in.
I mean, the difference between what was promised and what Jonestown actually became is just staggering. The promise was a sanctuary. The reality? It was an isolated prison camp patrolled day and night by armed guards. The dream of freedom was replaced by constant propaganda blasting from speakers, and anyone who stepped out of line faced brutal punishments. There was no leave.
And then things got even more twisted with something Jones called the White Nights. These were these terrifying all-night drills where Jones would get on the loudspeaker, claim they were under attack from the outside world, and force everyone to rehearse committing what he called revolutionary suicide.
Just try to imagine this. A defector named Deborah Layton described the absolute terror of these nights. Everyone would be woken up, told they were about to be invaded, and that their only option was death. You'd be forced to line up, get handed a cup of red liquid, and told it was poison, and you had minutes to live. And only after all that would Jones announce that it was just a loyalty test. It was psychological warfare, designed to break people down completely.
Okay, so the situation is a pressure cooker, and in November of 1978, the lid is about to blow off. Word had gotten back to the U.S. about what was happening, and one American politician decided he needed to see the truth for himself. And from there, everything just spiraled out of control with terrifying speed. Congressman Leo Ryan shows up to investigate.
During what was supposed to be a friendly reception, people start secretly passing his team notes begging for help. The next day, 16 people officially say they want to leave with the congressman. Jones loses it. As Ryan's group and the defectors are at the local airstrip about to leave, a tractor pulls up with gunmen sent by Jones. They open fire, murdering Congressman Ryan, 3 journalists, and 1 of the defectors.
Okay, murdering a U.S. congressman. That's it. That's the point of no return. Jones knew it. His whole world was collapsing. And he gathered everyone together for one final, horrific act.
He got on the microphone and told them it was over, that because of the murders at the airstrip, the outside world was coming for them. He spun this terrifying story about soldiers parachuting from the sky to torture them and their children. The only escape, he insisted, the only way out was to die on their own terms in a final revolutionary act.
What happened next was just methodical, horrifyingly so. They mixed up a huge vat of grape flavor aid with cyanide and tranquilizers. And then they started with the children. They used syringes to squirt the poison into the mouths of babies. Then the adults were told to drink. And the whole time, armed guards were standing there making sure no one could run.
And we know what he was saying as this happened because it was recorded. On what's now known as the death tape, you can hear Jones, over the sounds of crying, telling his followers to die with a degree of dignity, calling death preferable to life. It's one of the most profoundly disturbing recordings in history.
You know, this whole tragedy left a scar on our culture in a really strange way. You've heard the phrase drinking the Kool-Aid, right? It means blindly following something, no questions asked. Well, it comes directly from this event. But here's a little-known fact. It wasn't actually Kool-Aid. It was a cheaper brand called Flavor Aid.
So when you look back at the whole story, it's easy to just be horrified. But the really tough question Jonestown leaves us with is, why? It all started from a good place, right? A desire for a better world, a world without racism, without poverty. So what is it about us, about people, that makes that noble hope so vulnerable to being twisted into a nightmare? That's the question that still haunts us.